Long now, last week South Africa hosted the 37th Southern African Development Community Summit. This Heads of State and Government Summit, which ended on Sunday, was attended by its 15 member states. One of the issues that came up, as it has always been in settings like this, is the much needed infrastructure investment that would serve as a catalyst to economic transformation and industrial development in the region. Joining us now to take the discussion further live from our studios in Pretoria is Professor Lesiba Tefo. He is the head of Institute of Africa Renaissance Studies at the University of South Africa. Prof, good morning to you and thank you so much for coming through.
Good morning to you and to the listeners.
Thank you so much, Prof. Now, talk to us about your highlights of this year's SADC Summit, and would you really say that it was a success?
Well, for me, to talk about SADC, I would always want to locate it within the broader framework of the African Union. I'm never in a position to say whatever they are doing is successful in the main, because the mother body itself is to some extent moribund. It's a gathering of head of state who can hardly look each other in the eye and tell the truth as you should be told, who can make a diagnosis of the situation and say, here are the challenges and this is how we can contend or deal with them. Yes, indeed, they can meet and talk about the infrastructure. Look, rather than to sound too negative, there are certain things that have been achieved in the past 10, 15 years that I must say. One, there are fewer coups d'etats today than there were yesteryears. There is a resurgence of relatively good economies in the absence of Renamo, in the absence of Frelimo. If you visit the two countries, you'll see that they are doing fairly well. Three, there are periodic elections. Some of them contested outcomes, but in the main, the region is stabilizing. To that extent, I can give them credit. But look at Robert Mugabe, look at Mswati the King, and say, are the people in those spaces enjoying the democracy as it ought to be? Look at the people of Lesotho. In 5 years, they've had 3 elections. I was one of the observers during that election, and I have no doubt that in the next few months, again, the government of Lesotho will collapse, simply because the constitution that they have is the source of their problem. It's a constitution peculiar in the whole continent. In the world, I think it's closest to the constitution of New Zealand. So there are challenges, there are successes, but there is a lot that needs to be done, especially when it comes to poor political leadership, because good governance is a sine qua non for socio-economic development.
All right. And of course, Prof, we've also taken over the chairmanship. President Jacob Zuma emphasizing on regional industrialization, that it should be advanced. What is your take on that?
Again, good political governance. Well, who's saying that? It's my head of state, right? Whose party is in disarray? Who's the economy that is presiding over is in a recession? The economy is in a junk state. Why? Because of poor political governance. I emphasize that. Go to Botswana, go to Mauritius, you'll see how prosperous those countries are. Go to Mozambique. It had had its own challenges, but now that they are almost agreed as a family on the direction and trajectory they should follow, there is a resurgence. The infrastructure development that I've observed them is immensely encouraging. Why? Because the people have agreed. Let's put the guns away. Let's put shoulder to the wheels and build a country in the interest of all. In my country, corruption is reigning supreme. In my country, people are fighting. Yes, for 2010 World Cup, we invested a lot and we did a lot. But South Africa could achieve more. And as a powerhouse of the region, surely we should be a role model and enable others to perform as they could.
Yeah.
And as they should as well.
Let's just go back to SADC as the board itself. We've heard that it actually claims to have high standards, and therefore it is not keen to bring wayward countries into the fold. Is it really true? If you look at a country such as the DRC, which has been caught up in civil war with pending elections, for example, how is it different from a country such as Burundi?
Yes, again, when you talk about high moral standards, right? Before you can pontificate, if you want to change the world, start with yourself. You must be at least of certain moral standards for people to begin to entrust you with leadership. If you are saying to me as the AU, right, or as a SADC, you have got certain standards that you uphold, right, that's fine. But what are they in relation to the material development of the people in which you are located? You talk about the DRC. Who said anything about the DRC? Right? You look at, right, talk about the DRC as you mentioned, that's fine. The DRC ought to have had elections last year. Yeah. The DRC, it says it can't have elections this year. And many of us did expect that it did not happen. And we didn't expect SADC or the AU to say much. Right? You have Pierre Nkurunziza, the president of Burundi, who clearly defied the AU and continued to rule that country when he had run his course. That's fine. What did the AU do? Nothing. Right? What did SADC do? Nothing. Now you're talking about the Comoros. Yeah. A fairly poor country, I know it fairly well. It wants to join. The record is not very good. It's the one country, I think it had about 17 coup d'etats in about 30 or 40 years. They want to come on board. Well, maybe if they come on board, maybe as the new leadership, the likes of Magufuli in Tanzania begin to grow in numbers. The likes of Ian Khama, indeed, we might find that the region gets on the appropriate trajectory, but good political governance, quality leadership, men and women of integrity is what SADC needs and is what the AU needs.
But what do you think are the reasons behind Burundi and Comoros not being accepted to join to be accepted as members? Is there perhaps a specific criteria? Look,
who is saying they shouldn't? Because you cannot say Burundi should not be accepted because of a given criteria, which criteria already is being flouted by those who are already inside. You are not, I'm sure you are not about to tell me that Swaziland is a worthy member of SADC vis-a-vis Burundi. You can't say to me DRC ought to be there, but Burundi excluded. And indeed, you are not about to say Zimbabwe is the best role model and it can be there, but others can be excluded. By the same token that you exclude the Burundi, sure, there should be a good basis to exclude the DRC and in particular Zimbabwe.
All right, so are you basically saying that they're not consistent in terms of their criteria?
If they have one. I wonder if they have one. Yeah. Because if you say you have got a criteria, you must live by it. And we must not even doubt or speculate. Right? Mm-hmm. On paper, they have a criteria. But that means nothing. You must live, you must exist, you must exemplify the criteria by your actions, thoughts, deeds, and even the aspirations that you have. And the material conditions of the people should be dictated by that criteria, and then we are not going to debate that.
All right, just a quick one here, Prof. Outside the summit, of course, the Grace Mugabe case. What's your view on this saga? Many people saying that as much as South Africa is prioritizing maintaining the relations, but it is also compromising the safety of its own citizens.
Well, I heard the Honorable Minister say there were two options here. One, we keep good neighborliness. Alternatively, we uphold the law of the Republic of South Africa. I would have opted for the latter, upholding the laws of the Republic of South Africa. Because what has happened is exactly what happened with al-Bashir. And gradually you are becoming a pariah. But at the same time, you are also saying to the people of South Africa that law and order is subservient, or is not as important as good neighborliness. And before I leave this point, listen to one Zimbabwean leader in South Africa who said to the people of South Africa that Grace Mugabe's conduct is reprehensible and it fans the fires of xenophobia, because they say we steal, we take their jobs, we take their women, and we beat them up. And indeed, the mother of the nation of Zimbabwe comes here and does that. Wouldn't that tomorrow lend legitimacy to those who say, you are here and you are up to no good and we shall retaliate?
All right, exactly what South Africans are saying. Prof, let's leave it at that, but thank you so much for chatting to us here on Morning Live. Professor Lesiba Tefo, live from our studios in Pretoria. He's from the Institute for African Renaissance Studies at the University of South Africa on the recent SADC meeting that ended on Sunday in Sandton.